So this show, the reason you and I are here spending a few minutes together, thanks for that, by the way, is sacred sexual power. Sacred sexual power. What does that mean, sacred sex? That term, I think, is one that has the potential to be sort of this vague, yeah, that sounds good, but what does that actually mean? Let's bring it to some simple terms of what it means to me, what I've seen it mean to clients, and a way that we can actually put it into practice, and why it is so much better. It is not about giving something up. It's not about somehow sacrificing or having less. In fact, it's actually about tuning in to the real expansiveness and potential of what sexual energy can be in our lives. So as I think back to years ago, many years ago, I had kind of a knowing of this idea that sexuality, I wanted it to be more, it could be more, it was deeper. It was vague at the time for sure. I didn't really have specific kind of questions that I was thinking about early on in the journey. It was just kind of this little feeling. And over the course of my own journey through the years, over the course of thousands of calls with you guys, working with clients, hearing from you guys, this term sacred sexuality has moved from this vague kind of thing to a very specific, a very beautiful, and a very powerful thing. It is so much better. I think that's one thing that I want to convey from my own experience and what I've heard from so many of you guys is I think that maybe for some people, they hear the term sacred sex and maybe it sounds kind of boring or it sounds less exciting maybe in some ways. But to me, it's much, much more exciting, because that's where we really tune into what it can be and how it can feel and the pleasure that we can experience and the connection that we can experience and the way that we can light up our own world and the worlds of those people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. It is much more exciting. Let's bring it to a very fine point, right? What does this actually mean? There's three things that sacred sexuality means to me. The first is respect. It's giving it the respect it deserves. It's recognizing that it is powerful. It may actually be the most powerful force that we have access to. I believe it is. It is the creative force. It's the reason that we're here. It is very, very powerful. And we see in our own lives, you've seen your own version of that. And we see as we look out into society that it is very, very powerful on both ends of the spectrum. It can be powerfully toxic and it can be powerfully high vibration. It can potently expand our own light and connect us with other people, not only with our sexual partner, but with everyone. It can deepen the way that we connect with everyone and with our whole world. So it is a very, very powerful thing. And I think for a lot of people, and as I think back to, my teenage years and even in the earlier years of my marriage in my 20s, it's kind of like a kid with a dangerous weapon that they don't know how to use, right? And that's the way that I think a lot of people actually experience sexuality. In some cases, for a lot of their lives or their whole lives, certainly early on in the journey, we have this incredibly powerful thing. We don't know how powerful it is. We don't know how to interact with it in a safe way, right? In a way that actually lifts us up. So the first key to approaching our life and our sexuality in a sacred way and benefiting from the awesomeness of that is just giving it the respect it deserves. It's having that mindset as we interact within our own being, as we look at our own practices and perspectives and emotions, and as we interact with other people and all of the sexual kind of things that exist out there in the world. It's just approaching all of that with respect and going, you know what? Yeah, this is actually a really powerful thing. So I'm gonna pay attention to it. I'm not just gonna sort of willy-nilly throw things around and just respond to it kind of reactively, which we'll get to a little bit more in a few minutes, that idea of reactive versus intention. But that's the first thing, is respect. We gotta give it the respect that it deserves. The second thing is it's flipping the priority of body and soul. So the way that I always kind of, not intentionally, it's not like I sat down and decided this, but again, thinking back, approach sexuality it was like body first, and then the soul and the heart kind of was like looped in, and yeah, it was affected by that, but that wasn't really the priority a lot of times, right? It was, especially as a kid, just sort of feeling these powerful urges, being aroused by various things that I would see and kind of just being tugged around by that. And primarily the physical, right? The visual and the physical part of sex, which is of course important, and our bodies are indeed important, and the actual touch and sensation and stimulation and arousal and the visual appeal and all that stuff, it matters absolutely. But sacred sexuality comes when we recognize that the physical body, it's just a gateway, right? It's a gateway to our soul. And when we approach our sexuality from a soul first perspective, recognizing that it is actually about our soul, it's about what's going on deeply within us, it's about what's going on deeply within our partners, that's when it becomes sacred, because that's when we actually get our priorities right. And it's not, again, this is not a very complex thing. It's actually just a very simple idea that we can keep in mind as we face all of the little decisions, as we deal with our own inner world, and we understand over time and gain greater awareness of what thoughts are actually running through our mind and what emotions we have around all of this stuff and how we interact with other people, right? This part is huge. We've got to recognize that when we interact with someone in a sexual way, it's not this body first thing and just sort of the heart happens or the soul happens. It's no, we're approaching it as one soul connecting with another soul. The body, the visual, the physical, it's just the gateway. It's the gateway to get to that deeper place. So we approach it with respect. We shift our priorities the way they should be, which is soul first. And by the way, that absolutely applies within our own practice. So independent of having sex with anyone else, something that we've talked about a lot on this show is mindful edging. It's connecting with ourself. It's masturbating in a way that is mindful, that is indeed sacred. And what makes it sacred, right? What makes masturbation sacred or not? Well, it's respecting it as a very powerful thing and understanding that it can be dangerous, because all powerful things can be dangerous if they're used inappropriately or in a way that drags us down. And by the way, inappropriately, how it drags you down, that's up to you to decide. I'm not here to tell you what particular things or actions or practices or whatever are going to make you feel certain ways. That's up to you to figure out. But masturbation can indeed be sacred when we approach it with respect, and when we approach it by looking at it as actually a practice of connecting with our own soul. When we put down porn, when we let go of fantasy as much as possible, and we never can really control exactly in the moment what our mind is going to do, but we can guide it over time, right? So we guide our mind, and we recognize that our awareness and our attention is a very powerful thing. And what we put our awareness on, we give energy to. So if you're putting your awareness on some porn stars or some random fantasy, you're literally giving energy to those sources. So when you let go of that stuff and you put your awareness within yourself, on your own body, on your own sensations, on your own soul, and you go deeply within, it definitely becomes sacred. And I can tell you, it becomes much more enjoyable, much more powerful. It is a very deep and expansive world, much more than I realized for a long time, and maybe more than you realize now, because what I'm continuing to find is that it gets ever deeper and ever more expansive. There is no limit, right? So we approach it with respect. We put our soul first. We put the soul of our partner, whoever we're interacting with. And by the way, yeah, does that apply to porn and all those things? It sure does. Are you thinking about, if you're watching porn, are you thinking about the soul of the person that you're watching? Probably not. In fact, in some ways, you're probably kind of actively or subconsciously kind of suppressing that. So it's putting the soul first. It's giving respect. And the last and maybe the most important thing, which actually those first two things set the foundation for this, and that is intention. It's approaching moment to moment, interaction to interaction, all of the things in our inner world, all of the physical things, the communication, all of the things sexual in our life. We approach it with intention. We stop being pulled around and like dragged around like by this wild horse, and we're just hanging by our ankle, and we just go wherever the hell it wants, right? We get up with our attention, with our mind, with the power of our focus, and we move with intention. We recognize how a situation looks. We take time to kind of be curious with it. And this might all happen like in an instant, or it might be bigger picture things that unfold over time. But we have a curiosity and awareness. And then as we take action, as we interact, as we communicate, as we decide what our perspective actually is going to be, what we're going to choose into, we do all of that with intention. nearly deciding how you're going to approach a certain situation with your own priorities is a massive shift for how a lot of us interact with sexuality. You may be used to interacting with a lot of the layers of your life that way, where you do have more intention, and you may be less used to, or not at all used to, approaching sexuality that way, because it is a very kind of typical experience, I think, for a lot of us to just be kind of, we're like pulled all over the place, and we just tend to follow whatever that arousal kind of calls us to. That's not intention. Intention is taking in the sensory signals. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? Taking in all of those signals, processing in your own inner world, and then actually deciding, what is the path of high vibration here, right? What is this moment asking of me? We talked about that recently. What is this moment asking of me? It puts you in a place of intention. So if you give sexuality the respect it deserves, understand it's a very powerful thing. If you put soul first and you look at the body as the gateway to the soul, your own and anyone else's, and if you act and move and think and communicate with intention, that's sacred sexuality. It can look so different for different people. It's not about slowing things down in really slow motion all the time. It's not about religion or any kind of dogma like that. It's just go deeper, right? Give it the respect that it deserves as a very powerful thing. Put your soul first. Let that be the guide, and actually choose a path with intention. If you do that and you just keep doing that over and over again, you're going to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. You're going to keep healing more and more and more of the toxic stuff that needs to be healed. And you have that because we all have that. It's part of the human experience. You're going to heal more of that. You're going to experience more expansiveness, more connection with yourself, more pleasure. I can tell you unquestionably, exponentially more pleasure is part of my life now, approaching sexuality this way, than in the kind of mindless, lower vibrational way that I used to. It's not even close. It's not even close. There's no instant kind of thing with any of this. You don't need to all of a sudden be a different person tomorrow. If you keep these three things in mind, you give it respect, you put the soul first, you walk with intention, you're going to gradually, every day, you're going to stack a little brick, right? And that castle of your sexuality is going to get more sacred. It's going to brighten. It's going to get more expansive. You're going to connect with people in a whole different way. You're going to connect with your own soul in a whole different way. And it's going to filter out to every area of your life. That's my favorite thing. And really what makes sexuality so beautiful as well as so powerful and potentially dangerous is that it does truly, it filters out into every part of us. Sometimes in very indirect ways, sometimes in slightly more direct ways, but it filters out into everything. Our energy, our mindset, how we communicate, the action that we take, the discipline that we have, how happy we are, how at peace we are, all of the things, all of the relationships, everyone you interact with, every layer of your life is affected by sexuality. And the more little bricks that you stack of sacred sexuality, the more all of that is going to get brighter. It's going to get more expansive. It's going to get more beautiful. Thank you, as always, for sharing a little piece of your day with me, sending you good vibes, sending you sacred, powerful vibes. I promise you, we all have so much more power inside of us than we realize. Even if you are so much different than you used to be, and you feel like you've come so far, because you probably have very, very far. You've already come. We have so much more power. There's so much more depth. There's so much more expansiveness. So keep stepping, keep stacking. We'll talk to you soon.